So today we are going to move on to the second stage of our polyhedron project. You should have completed your practice page where you have planned out what it is that you want to do. And one thing that I've noticed over the years doing this project is that students tend to start with a practice page idea, but once they see other student examples and really see what this project is gonna look like, they end up changing ideas and making adjustments to improve, make it more creative, maybe do something more detailed. So that's why I always start with this practice planning page, because what we think of at the very, very beginning is usually not the most creative idea, and as we start and continue working, we usually generate better ideas a little bit further into the process. So if you are looking at your piece now and you think, well, maybe I want to add more to it or change it up or make it more interesting or change the size of something, this, when we start on the big project today, on the good paper, is where you want to make sure that you have a really solid, concrete idea that you're happy with. For example, yesterday when I was working on my title image for the title triangle, the Elements of Art, I tried out 3 different designs before I picked out one that I really liked. So now I've got a design that I'm happy with. But I went through 2 other tries of images that I thought would work and ended up not, so I erased them and came up with something that I'm now happy with. So it is okay to change your ideas and modify, and that's what this planning page is for. It's meant to make sure you're really happy with the idea and it's nailed down before you start on the final product. Because once you start on the final product, there is no going back, because you only have one of these pieces of paper to work on. So on this final paper, I would like for you to write your name and class code at the top. And then these triangles, it doesn't really matter if they're in the exact same location as your one from the other day. Like I might put my pineapple one, you know, here or here. It doesn't really matter. And it doesn't really matter what direction I work in. But we are now going to make the final draft of your designs in pencil on this good finished piece of paper. We are not adding any color to this today. Do not get out colored pencils. Do not get out your black Sharpie. This is only going to be laid in with pencil. That is it. You have, if you had any resource pictures that you were working from, I used a picture of a sunflower for my title slide the other day. I'm going to look at that same picture again to work from. But we are going to just very, very lightly lay in our final finished drawing. And I like to keep things light while I'm working, and that's really, really important to me because I want to be able to erase and not see those pencil marks later. That way I can erase it and it's completely gone. So I'm going to speed this video up and show you what it looks like for me to lay in each one of those images. Okay, so now that I have everything laid in, I just want to sort of give you an overview. I did decide to make a couple of changes as I went from my original idea. For example, my value triangle with the leaves. I ended up thinking about if I did too many leaves, it would be way too busy and way too complex. So I did streamline this a little bit, and I thought it would be better for me to do a light, medium, and dark leaf to represent value, and that would give me a little bit more space to go into more detail and have those look a little bit nicer. But I've laid everything in just pencil, and everything's really light. I can still go back in and erase and adjust things if I need to as I start coloring and stuff on the later days. One thing I want to sort of point out to you, things like for my line example. Now my initial idea, if you remember, for lines was to do fill this shape with all sorts of like really fun Zentangle patterns. And then I'm also going to do the opposite on those horizontal lines in the background. I'm going to do some sort of like an alternating pattern of like really dark stuff and light, and then really dark and light and really dark. Do something interesting to fill up all the space in the background. But I did not want to do that in pencil because I'm going to go into that full detail once I get to the pen portion of this project. Notice the same thing here with the watermelon slices. When I drew them in this time, I chose not to put the little seeds on the watermelons because I'm going to do that detail work with pen and with colored pencil once I get to it. So right now, what we want this piece to be is just a very light laying in of what you want the final product to look like in pencil. So there were some things like, say, for example, the streaks in the sky that I'm going to put in for the sun rays. I don't necessarily need that done in pencil right now. I'm going to do that once I get to the color portion. So you may notice that there are some things that I've omitted from my drawing. But that's all we're going to get to today. Tomorrow, we are going to start working with pen. We're going to be outlining things in pen, and we are going to be starting working with colored pencils, or you can even work with markers if you have markers. We'll be adding in the color and the details starting tomorrow. So for today, just laying it in. This is your final draft in pencil, the way that you want this to look for the final thing. The other thing that I wanted to share with you was a sample grading rubric to show you past student works, to give you an example of what scores a check plus versus a check versus a check minus. Because I want you to have a really good idea before you begin this project with what the quality of the craftsmanship and the neatness and the creativity that I'm looking for with this project before we get to the coloring part. So some of the examples that I show you on that sample grading rubric shows you those two value comparisons. And one of the things that I'm looking at is we can tell that this student did a much neater job when working with their value structure. They did a really nice little job showing the color fades. It's nice and gradual. I like the little flourishes that they did before and after their letters. And I can tell that their letters are nice and evenly spaced out. They really thought about the placement and the font, making it very readable and centered. Whereas this other student work, you can see that their marks are a lot more evident in their shading of the value. They've only taken one color as opposed to the nice neatness of this one with lots of different colors to show that value structure. So this one is overall much more simplistic. The mark making is not as neat and precise as this one. And notice that the word value is offset off to the left, and they have the gap right here on the right side. So you can tell that they maybe didn't plan this out as well as this student here. So that kind of shows you the difference in the neatness, the precision, the craftsmanship that we're going for. So on my grading rubric, this project would score higher than this one. They both have fairly simplistic ideas. I don't know that either one of them is really thinking outside of the box yet, which is why I put this one in the check minus category and this one in the check category, because neither one of those for me was really super creative with how they chose to represent value, but this one was much neater, so that bumped that up to the check category. So take a look at that rubric and really think about what your design is going to look like, and take that into account today as you begin working on laying in the pencil on your final cardstock piece.